All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. Just took a swig of water too for that purpose. Hope everybody's having a good day thus far. I am very excited today to not only have another modern era warrior on, but a another Air Force Special Operations vet. That's going to be covering some interesting aspects, not just some of the special tactics squadron stuff that we've had from our last PJ guest and CCT guest, but some weather aspects, special reconnaissance, and some Air Force weather, special operations weather teams, which is very cool. So today, our guest, as I should have led off with, is Mr. Trent Seegmiller. And as I said, Air Force. I believe he retired as a senior master sergeant.
Yep.
Excellent. I got that right. Thank God. Um, and of course, he's got a long list of bona fides, and we're just going to cover that as we go along because I will butcher it, and I'm going to take a win while I've got this intro at a nice point here. So, Trent, thank you very much for joining us. It's an absolute honor to have you today.
The honor's all mine, man. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Excellent, excellent. And I should also add, those of you that don't know, I hope most of all of my viewers know it, but Trent is also one of the hosts over at One's Ready podcast, which Peaches and Trent and gosh, Aaron also, who just recently joined us, as well as Peaches before him. So we now have the trifecta of the One's Ready leadership under our belt here. So we kind of like to ask a little bit of the beginning origin story, if you will, of our guest. So we're going to kind of start right at the beginning here. When and where were you born?
I was born in the Salt Lake Valley in Utah in do I want to say the year? I don't know. 1982. Yeah, so it's been a minute.
Okay. Salt Lake City. Beautiful country. See a lot of unfortunately now there it's always the Mormon wives and all of the reality shows, but man, beautiful country out there in Utah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because you do a lot of these podcasts, and there's a ton of stories about guys who had really tough childhoods, and I got to be honest, I'm not one of those guys. Like any of the challenges that led me on the path that I ended up on were any of the challenges were created by me.
Strictly self-induced.
Yeah, I did it to myself. So, and I guess it worked out though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Family wise, did you have any family history of military service?
Yeah. My dad and my uncle were both in the Air Force. So I grew up. My dad enlisted. He had his draft number for Vietnam was, I guess, low or high or whatever it was. He was going to get drafted. He got the number. So as soon as he graduated high school, he took matters into his own hands and enlisted in the Air Force. And I don't think he enjoyed it that much because all I heard when I was growing up, he never talked about it that much. Not because it was like crazy or anything else like that, but it was a small part of his life. But when he did talk about it, he had 6 sons, and he was like, if any of you guys are going to join the military, you're going to be officers, because he was very, just the way he was. He wasn't
no enlisted in this family.
Yeah, he wasn't, he was an enlisted dude, but he just did not enjoy his time as an enlisted guy. So, being the middle child that I am, obviously I disregarded almost all of his advice.
As young men will do, though. That's one of those things. We great advice coming our way, but it seems like we have that innate and great ability to just ignore it flat out.
Yeah, what do they say? The truly wise people can learn from other people's experiences, and I've never been great at that. I got to go through it myself.
I am right there with you, and I've got the scars and hospital visits to back that up. So I'm right there with you.
Yep.
Man, that's crazy. Did you say all 6 brothers in total or 5?
I have 5 brothers. There's 6 of us.
Wow.
There's a whole pile of us. Yeah.
Holy cow!
Bunch of dudes.
You've almost got your own little fire team right there with the brothers, man. I mean, that's crazy.
It's
How
half an ODA.
what's the how big is the age difference from oldest to youngest?
I think it's 15 years.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
That
So
must have
yeah,
been. Go
we kind
ahead.
of
I'm
came in
sorry.
pairs in the beginning. There was like a pair and then a break and then a pair. And then the last two got paired together, even though they're like 4 or 5 years apart. But they were, who cares? They were the youngest ones. They're way down there.
That's awesome, man. Coming in pairs like that, it's I only child, but I gotta imagine I have heard it is annoying, but man, having a brother and in your case several brothers to play with and have your back, that's gotta be awesome. Um,
I mean, it's everything's a positive, pros and cons,
mhm.
positives, negatives. I remember at one point though, I did call my oldest brother, and I thanked him for teaching me that pain is not really a thing that is a showstopper. I was like, if there was one skill I joined the Air Force with, it was my ability to just take some punishment and to just move past it. And it's not like he was a terrible brother or anything, but like I was a small kid and he was a big kid, and learning that if you get knocked down, you just pop back up and you can win a fight or an engagement just through not quitting, a trick through just your
Sheer will.
yeah. And he taught me that for sure.
That's awesome. Love that. Man. Did you being out there in Salt Lake Valley, were you big in the outdoors? Were you playing sports as a kid with all the brothers, or what were you doing as a young man?
Yeah, so growing up, scouts was probably a lot of the outdoorsy stuff. Like my family was like kind of outdoorsy, I guess, for the area. We did bike riding, some hikes. My dad was real big into skiing, so of course I hated skiing and never did any of that stuff. But we did like scout camps and all the other stuff. And then my sport of choice was soccer. So
Okay.
as far as in a sport to set you up for an aerobic baseline, and then starting out at 5,000 feet ish as where you grow up at, it really paid dividends later on. But some of the outdoor stuff, to be fair, also when I say I was a Boy Scout, I hated the Boy Scout thing, like the merit badges,
Mhm.
the classes. I loved going to the classes. I loved learning things. But when it came time to fill out the stupid paperwork and to get the merit badges, I don't know what I would have ended up as, but like that wasn't my thing. I wanted to go shoot, I wanted to hike, I wanted to do all the things,
The fun
but
stuff.
I wouldn't do the paperwork. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who can blame you, especially at a young age? But I mean, that's interesting because it seems like we've had, especially in the Vietnam group, but I've noticed here in the past few GWAT vets that we've had, there's been Eagle or Boy Scouts and a few Eagle Scouts, which is the big boys of the Boy Scout world, shall we say, the tier one group, if you want to go that far, shall we say?
They did all the things. They met all
Yeah,
the
yeah.
requirements. Yeah,
They weren't hesitant on their paperwork. They filled out their paperwork for the badges.
yeah, it was I wasn't much of a planner, so I was just a doer.
Hey, that's the world needs doers, man. That ain't nothing gonna get done without them.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
with you and the big family, were you going to did y'all have a local high school that all of y'all terrorized, or were you homeschooled, or
two oldest brothers went to the public high school. Um, I changed things for the family. I managed to, I didn't drop out of high school. I managed to fail my way out of middle school. And so my parents, in order to save me from a life of terrible decisions, which I was on that path of the terrible decision path, they pulled me out, and I didn't get homeschooled. They sent me to like this private school where you only went 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, and all they did was like the basics. It's like your math, your English, your history, all those other things. You basically go to school, they give you all your homework, you turn your stuff in, they give you all your homework, but you have Monday and Friday off completely, and you're only at school from like 8 to 12, 3 days a week. So it's kind of an in-between thing, which was nice as a teenager because I could have a job. I could work Mondays and Fridays at least in the afternoons at the fast food restaurants and all that other crap that I worked. But yeah, I mean, it was good for me. So like I got pulled out of regular school, so I was in this weird kind of like reform private school. But it was the thing about that school that was really cool for me was and it had a lot in common with the military in this way, was it was very linear. It was like, hey, on the year that you decide to graduate, all you have to do is declare that you want to graduate, and you have to meet all these requirements, right? You have to do every single assignment, whether it was SAT or unsat. Your graduation year, you had to do a service project and write a thesis. And then at the end of the year, they determine if you're going to graduate or not based on all that stuff. And I really appreciated that. It wasn't some like you have to go through all these classes that don't matter and you have to spend all these hours in school. I liked the abbreviated, linear path that they put me on, and I ended up graduating a year early. So yeah.
Wow. Heavy duty. That yeah, it sounds like, I mean, they're literally cutting out the I mean, for lack of a better term, the nonsense, the breaks, the BS class changes and all that that takes up all the time. Knock your 4 hours out and cover your 3, 4 core subjects and get out of there and do it,
Yeah.
you know.
Go do your homework when you need to, but like, yeah, you have a lot of extra time to do, real life things, get a job and all that other crap.
That mine wasn't 3 days. I myself, if you can imagine, was a bit of a troublemaker, and I was gonna end up starting in alternative school the next my senior year. I had like 96 days alternative school. And that was not gonna happen because I had already done like 2 months or something, and it was just an utter nightmare, just crazy, the worst of the worst. If you can imagine, like almost like school prison in
Yeah.
the area, that's what it was, and I was even worse there. So my mom got me out of there. We did a it was actually, yeah, full blown Christian homeschooling package or what have you from Pensacola. They'd send you your schoolwork for like the entire month, or maybe it was like the entire year in one, like several boxes full. And literally, if you wanted to, which I did, you could sit there and knock out an entire school year in a month and a half, 2 months. And
Yeah.
I did that, and I ended up graduating early as well, and was working and trying to save money to go to college, but ended up getting in too much trouble, so I had to go to a local college. But it all worked out. I graduated with a history degree, and here we are.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff now. Looking as again, I talking offline, I feel like an old man. There's a lot of stuff in the school that I think we could either nix completely or alter and really get some stuff out, because both in grade school, high, junior high, and even college to an extent, there's nonsense in there that's just taking up way too much time.
That's a whole nother podcast, my
Oh
man.
yeah.
If we
Oh,
want to talk
oh.
about public school and all the other things. And
I can see why there's an uptick in homeschooling, to be honest, but I'll leave it at that. So did you mentioned you worked when you graduated early? How long were you working until did you want to further the educational department and go to college, or were you already thinking military here, or
I wasn't thinking anything,
uh,
So I graduated in 99. I didn't join the Air Force until 2003. So in the meantime, I had a bunch of different kinds of jobs. I think I had, I think I counted them up one time, like 8 or 9 jobs before I joined the Air Force. And I kind of went to some community college and some other stuff off and on. School still wasn't my thing. I just wasn't attracted to anything that was going to keep me interested. The military never felt like it was a real option for me, because maybe because my dad was like, he didn't have, and he wasn't like not patriotic. It's just he didn't have the best Air Force experience, and so also like we were fairly well educated at a young age about the government. And so I didn't have a lot of love for the government and the military. Like the military is part of the government. So and then I get there's some separations in there, but it never seemed like an option to me. But I worked a bunch of jobs. I paid some colleges to go to their parties. Got kind of like just burned my life as far down as I could before my parents would intervene again. And they didn't really intervene, but I remember I was in my basement. I was back at my parents' house for something, and my dad sat me down and he's like, "Hey man, like, maybe the military is for you. You know, like I was going nowhere at 100 miles an hour, and he described it as a halfway house to adulthood was the military. And so I know he was super concerned because he actually said, like, maybe you should go enlist. And actually, by this time, my older brother, one older than me, had already enlisted in the Air Force. I don't think he'd shipped out yet, but he'd signed up to be security forces in the Air Force. And so that he'd kind of already broken that mold for the family. So my dad was like, well, if one of them's going to do it, this one needs help. So he's like, maybe you should also join the military.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was you mentioned joining in 2003. Where were you when 9/11 occurred?
So I think I was at my parents' house. I think I was still living at home. It was, I think, right before I moved out. Um, and I was it was like my day off of work or whatever it was. You know, I don't know. My life was pretty, it was just work and unstructured, had the girlfriend or whatever. Um, and I remember one of my brothers waking me up and he's like, hey, someone flew a plane into the World Trade Center. And I was like, cool, it'll probably be on the news all day. So I went back to sleep because I was tired. I probably stayed up too late the night before doing stupid stuff. Anyway, woke up, the second plane hit. And so, you know, honestly, I went over to my girlfriend's house that night. She was crying and I didn't understand why, because we lived in Utah. I don't know anybody in New York. Like, I'm just not that kind of guy that's going to whatever.
Yeah.
Also, that day, I remember saying stuff like, well, how they're going to increase the size of the federal government and take our guns away, blah, blah, blah. So I wasn't completely wrong about some of the things that were going to happen afterwards.
Yeah.
But that's my mind space when 9/11 happened. Like, my first thought wasn't to go join the Air Force, right? So yeah, not one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, and born in '82, you know, Utah. Not that, maybe not now, but I mean, you know, they used to be known. It was not maybe the militia movement and all that, but there was a healthy, as there should be, a healthy distrust of the government in the Midwest area. I mean, heck, Ruby Ridge would come, Waco would come, you know, so. And I was actually just thinking about that, how it's swapped. Well, now it's actually coming back where people are like, hey, maybe we need to have a healthy look at the government here and have a distrust here. But I digress again.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
So that's very interesting. Your brother ended up joining before you. Did he join after 9/11 or pre 9/11?
No, he because he was in his tech training when I was in basic training in
Oh,
03.
wow.
So I think I'd always kind of thought about joining the military. I think he might have been a little late just because family or whatever. He went to college for a few years. He was actually a good student. He actually went to college and did his things, and but ended up enlisting in the Air Force. So it was kind of cool because when I was in basic training, we would meet up at church on Sundays,
Wow.
and we'd hang out a little bit, you know, and then go our separate ways again. So it's kind of cool.
Wow, that is cool. I always like hearing stories of either siblings. We've even had a few father and sons from the Vietnam era, of course, crossing paths at Bragg or either in Vietnam. I always like hearing about that when siblings or family members and such cross paths. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So excuse me, you hang on. Mute button. So you joined in 2003, and forgive me, I apologize to Peaches and as well as Aaron. Is the Air Force, is there like with I know the Army, they've got multiple places, the Marine Corps west of the Mississippi, you're going to San Diego, east, you're going to Parris Island. What's the Air Force like? Where are you going for basic training?
Down here in San Antonio. It's the only
Oh,
one for
wow.
the Air Force. Yep.
Oh, San Antonio is home of basic for Air Force.
That's it. Yep. Lackland Air Force Base. So it was kind of cool too, because it's like, I think I stayed in the same dorms that my dad had stayed in. The dorms that they'd made were during the surge, I think, for Vietnam. They'd built all these like temporary dorms that stayed there forever, and some of them are still being used. They're having a hard time tearing them down, but yeah. So it's kind of the same dorms that my old man went through. I went through. Two of my brothers went through. So
That is super cool.
Yeah.
Oh man. So basic, what's basic like for you? Is it are you going in there expecting to get the beat down like the movies? Is it much to your the build up, or what do you what's it like for you?
Well, so I was going to join the Marines. So I was actually in my car on my way to go sign paperwork for the Marine Corps because I didn't want to be in the Air Force because we've talked about how everything that my dad did, and I didn't hate my dad. Don't get me wrong, but I wanted to be different. I'm a
Mm,
contrarian and all that other stuff. So I was going to go be a Marine because I'm a tough kid, right? Like but I was a skinny kid, and I'm like, they're going to put some muscle on my bones. I'm going to go do something, and the Marines are very excited to get you in the door. And I'd been talking to some, and anyway, I was at a different recruiting site talking to the Marines, and I was driving past this the recruiting station where my brother had gone, and I see the Air Force sign, and for some reason, I picked up my phone and I called my brother and I go, "Hey man, like, why did you join the Air Force?" And he goes, "Man, just stop in and say hi." I'm like, "Okay." You know, the Marines are going to be excited to see me no matter when I show up.
oh
I'll be
yeah.
able to sign the paperwork. I'm not too worried about it. And so I stopped into the Air Force station, and it's 2003. The Air Force typically doesn't have a hard time recruiting for like the general Air Force needs and all that other stuff. Dude, the old bro had his feet kicked up on the desk. Sergeant techs aren't pew, and it's just so different, you know. And he ended up challenging me basically without saying it, and so I had to get his attention. I go, dude, why should I join the Air Force? And he looks at me and he goes, I don't know. Why should you join the Air Force? And I was
Ooh.
like, bro, do you think I'm not smart enough? You know, so I sat down and that's how he hooked me in. You know, did the ASVAB and all that other stuff. And of course, like, you know, you start taking the test and that's when the Air Force gets a little more interested. And I scored fairly well. So, you know, that's how that all happened.
Awesome. So
Um,
when you take the ASVAB and everything, do you know by the time you're going to basic what you're doing? Like if guys signed up Ranger contract or came in and X-ray contracts or what have you, or does that come along as you keep going
y-
through the
yeah.
pipeline, if you will?
So I took the ASVAB and I took the D lab. I didn't score really well on the D lab, the language test, but I scored well enough to qualify for. I was going to be an airborne cryptologic linguist or whatever. And so I was super excited about it. I'm like, I'm going to be on a plane, and it's like nerdy enough to like challenge me, I think. And then I get to go to SEER school, and so I saw that, and I'm like, that's kind of exciting. Stepping out of my comfort zone, that'll be kind of cool. So I get to basic training. And I know you'd asked about basic training, but one of the things that happened was, like I said, I had not made good life decisions. And so I think a combination between my recruiter maybe not wanting to delve into things that could disqualify me, because like getting a linguist was not the easiest thing to do. And also I probably wasn't super honest about everything at the time either. So I show up, I do the classic thing where I show up to BMT. They ask me questions. I probably answered them differently than I'd answered my recruiter. They say, we're not giving you a top secret clearance right out the gate. Here's 5 jobs you can do. Pick one of these jobs. One of those jobs is weather. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go be a weather guy. So that's what I did. So yeah, so I spent a lot of time in basic training, not a ton, but like a fair bit of time getting like my flight physical and a bunch of other stuff because I was going to be the linguist guy. I missed all the special warfare, you know, like I missed the CCT, the pararescue, the TACP, the SEER briefings, all that other stuff I wasn't there for. And so I ended up becoming a weather guy. But, you know, overall, coming back, getting ready to be a Marine and having that in my brain, I was it was a quite a bit of a letdown. You know, the best part about basic training was getting out there and running on the track or doing PT or any of that other stuff. But being stuck in that dorm, folding shirts and socks and you know all the Air Force-y things. I mean, it's not like it was a great time, but it wasn't really the military.
Wow. That's it's always so interesting, guys. Expectations, if they're exceeding or below based on either the books they've read growing up or movies and all of that. That's always interesting. In fact, I don't. Is it? I mean, the full thing like we see with the Marine Corps. Do they get in your face and let you have it, or is it kind of toned down now to where they're still, hey, getting in your face and all that, but not really calling you a maggot or a piece of garbage and all of that? And
Yeah, I think when I went through, it was pretty toned down. I remember our drill instructor, our MTI, pulled us all into the day room early on, and he goes, "Hey, have y'all ever paid to see a rated R movie?" Because I guess they weren't supposed to cuss at us. And we go, everybody's like, "Yeah, we've all done it." He's like, "Good. So that if I cuss at you, you paid for that." He's like, "So I don't want to hear any complaints. Don't do it." Yeah. And he was actually, I got really lucky. If we're going through the career, there is a theme as one of the luckiest people on the planet Earth. Everything always works out for me. I don't know why, but my MTI was super rad. He did the best he could with what he had within the Air Force construct to make basic training what it could be. But he's just a good dude, and I think he only got in my face, I think twice, really in my face, and it was. I think day one, he tries to make the rounds and got in everybody's face. And I remember towards the end, I kind of got lazy and we were marching. And that's when I got the hat up against the side of my head and spit all over the side of my face because I was out of step or whatever. But overall, pretty easy.
Wow, that is crazy. The little off to the side R-rated movie filling out session right there. That's pretty crazy, man.
Well, it's it's ridiculous, right? Like, we're trying to create, everybody's expecting the military thing to happen when you show up. And then they're telling the TIs, like, "We got some complaints about you guys cussing too much, and we've got to be professional." And the Air Force is very, I don't think it's the best way to describe it, but the word that everybody uses is corporate, right? And we are far more corporate than the other services. And so stupid little things will get hung up on, like, "You shouldn't cuss at the trainees. They deserve respect," and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, man, they're not even airmen yet. They're zeros. We're all zeros still.
Wow, that is so interesting. But I mean, like you said, the Air Force has their way of doing it, and it works because as we'll see, it sure as hell worked for you and our previous other two Air Force guests.
Yeah.
So when you finish up with basic, is this where you now get into weather oriented what your MOS, I don't know the nomenclature Air Force wise, but
it doesn't matter. I mean, it's AFSC, but MOS, I think the Marines use MOS, the Army uses MOS, but the Navy uses like a rate, whatever it is. Yeah, your job. So yeah, I graduated basic training, and then I shipped off they put us on a bus and we went out to Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi for 6 or 7 months of weather training, which was not nearly as exciting as I thought it was going to be.
Depending on what time of the year you were there, I can imagine it was also quite miserable, depending if you hit that summer Mississippi or not.
Yep, I hit basic training in June, and then we got to Keesler in Mississippi in August.
Oh yeah, it's still mighty hot. Oh
yeah, it was gross.
Yeah, I always don't enjoy it because I'm not a masochist or anything, but I always kind of get a kick out of people from either the north or the West Coast or what have you. That Vegas is hot. I've been out there, dry heat and everything, but when they get here and immediately they're just sopping wet, and it's like, good God Almighty! It's like, yeah, man, I told you, it's miserable.
Yeah, but it's fun.
Oh, absolutely. But which is why a lot of the training takes place for various units down here to really make it miserable for y'all.
Yeah.
So what is again going to be learning here weather wise, what exactly in your MOS schools here, lack of a better term, what's on the curriculum, shall we say? What are you looking in the sky? Are they teaching you clouds and the whole thing, classwork and such? Or
there's no outside. So the first school, so weather at the time I came through was split into two different schools, and the first school that we went through, which was a change from history, the way that did it in the past, like historically. Anyway, I'm good at words. So we did forecasting school first. So it's like, atmospheric dynamics, how everything works, tracking weather, how weather patterns are formed, what they do, the different types of weather patterns, how they track. And all of our stuff was across the United States, right? Because your first duty station was more than likely going to be you forecasting for the United States. So it's a lot of time on that stuff. You go through your charts. We're still doing paper charts in school at the time. So you have to all your charts are like a different time frame, right? So you have like your current charts, you have like your historical charts, and then you have to like prog out what you think this storm is going to do or this system is going to do for the next however many hours on your paper chart, and you like gonna measure out where the cold front is gonna be, and you prog it out, and then you have to stand up in front of your class and your instructor and brief your charts and explain why you think that this is gonna end up in happening in this way. And then there's a lot of just like the language aspect of it, and then the coding aspect of it. So the weather coding, the way that weather observations and forecasts are written and put out in the military and the civilian space, there's a lot of crossover. So there's different ways to code it so that it's not all just plain language forecasts. So yeah, it's a long time. It took me, I got washed back once. That's a story, but it took me, I think, about 7 months. I got there in August and I graduated the next April. And so I was going to be a conventional weather guy because everybody, so back then you all had to be conventional weather before you could go special operations weather or army support weather, which I didn't know existed until we got a briefing when I was in tech school. One day they called us out all down to the conference room, and there was this just beautiful dude down there in his starched BDUs. His boots were super shiny. He was there with a chief who was less pretty. But Luna was the guy that was, the staff sergeant at the time, and he shows up and they give us this briefing. They're like, "Do you guys want to jump out of planes and get shot at and do weather?" And I was like, "Yes." Yeah. Like it's hard to explain. People are like, "What is it that like got you there?" And I don't know, like the PT at BMT I really appreciated, and we're there in Mississippi, and we're doing our physical training. And I don't want to be like all the other kids and just, run as slow as I can for 30 minutes in the afternoon and all the other stuff. Like I just had something more that I wanted to try, and I wanted to be scared of something. And my life had been such a disaster before. I'm like a huge disappointment, if nowhere else in my own mind, right? I'm nowhere near, at my capability. So I got that briefing and that was it. I was like, yes. So the rest of tech school was easier. It made sense to me because I had a goal now. And then you had to go be a regular weather guy or whatever, gal, person, airman it took me a little over a year at my first duty station to knock out the quals I needed to get my observing school knocked out, and then to head over to the other side.
Holy cow, man! 7 months of that. Yeah, that sounds like that would have been tough. And no outside time whatsoever. That's crazy. All inside. I would at least expect y'all to get out and start looking at something outside. Uh,
Yeah, in observing school, you do that a lot. In
okay.
forecasting school, not a lot of outside time. It's a lot of death by PowerPoint, and it was kind of cool in the beginning because we had Navy guys in our class with us. So it was the DoD at the time weather school. So every branch of service except for the Army, because they don't have their own weather guys, we do the weather for the Army. Are all in that same schoolhouse. So in the beginning, we had some Navy instructors, we had some Navy guys. I don't think we had any Marines in our class, but you have Navy, Marines, everybody under a single roof. So it was pretty rad.
That's pretty cool. I did not know everybody together, and I did not know the Army did not have their own weatherman and weather person, as you said.
Yeah. We got lost in the divorce between the Army Air Corps and the Army.
So with and you mentioned being I believe you said the conventional or stateside weather first. Or do you end up doing that when you graduate, or are you immediately in the shuffle and put into a more deployable combat role, or you do stateside duty first?
Yeah. So at the time they had these things called weather hubs. So when everybody graduated from weather school, the forecasting school, we'd all go to different locations where they take all your like junior airmen, put them all in one place, and we create the forecast for all the different locations, all the different bases in a region, right? So I went to South Carolina. I went to Shaw Air Force Base at the hub out there. And at Shaw, you had two things. You had the stateside, and then we also had the guys forecasting for overseas. I did not go to that side. I went to the stateside side of it, so it was pretty easy. But yeah, so you're just forecasting for like 12 hours a day. You do your little train up when you get there for like, I don't know, 6 weeks to make sure that you understand how to forecast, check your skills. Then they put you on the forecasting floor, and so you're there 12 hours at a time. So every single one of these bases, though, they have a qualified person that's a forecaster and an observer, right? So I would come up with my forecast. I have to get it reviewed by my boss that's sitting with me, and then the person that's there at station, they have to review it as well, because they're the ones that are going to have to answer for it, because they're actually giving the weather briefings out of the pilots that are going to go fly with their specified weather briefings that they get. So we're doing these station forecasts for all over the place, and so you get like 2 or 3 bases that you're assigned. And so every day or every night when you go in there, that's your responsibility, and you knock out those forecasts. And it's most of the time mind-numbingly boring behind your computer.
I can imagine. Of course, it's vital. I do watch the Weather Channel. As a matter of fact, we've got a little tropical system about to make landfall coming our way down here in Alabama. But yeah, I can imagine that that does get quite dull. But the other side, as we'll get into it, overseas, I can imagine this is a necessary building block getting to it to where you're going to be handling stuff overseas in combat situations. Did How were when you got there and got on the floor, as you said, and started making your forecast? How were your percentages? Were you doing quite well on your forecasts and such?
I think I did pretty well. Yeah. I mean, because and I care a lot about doing things right, and it's a funny thing. It feels like you're guessing in the beginning, because you have all these new tools that you're working with, and you'd heard what you heard in the schoolhouse, and it's like it's not. They taught you all the basics really, really well, but all the tools that you use to actually create the forecast, it's a little overwhelming at first, just like everything else, right? Like I think every job in the Air Force, when you're an airman, it's the worst part of the job, right? You're an airman, and also it's they throw a lot at you. But about 6 months in, I remember sitting at my desk and everything kind of like clicked into place, and then I could see, like all the atmospheric dynamics and everything else, the way it moved. Like you just done so many repetitions at that point that it all started to make sense. It's not like I was a weather expert by any means at that point, but like you were able to look at the radar, look at the satellite, look at like the observations from the ground, and really start putting your own picture together. And then when we're looking at weather models, you get a lot better at seeing, the reality of the situation, where the models are going wrong, and being able to fix things a lot faster. And you get a lot better at it real quick. But
That's amazing, and
yeah, the
especially hearing
repetitions.
it click like that.
Yeah, but the repetitions are absolutely vital. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like
Oh yeah.
there is an art to it, because chaos math came from people trying to predict the weather. That's where all that came from, because there's so many variables, especially when you get down to the smaller scales. But like, yeah, if you didn't get all those repetitions, if you didn't go through all that schooling, you wouldn't be able to do the job very effectively. And so, especially in mass, the way that we try to produce weather people. So it all makes it just like everything else, right? Like it's overwhelming. You don't know what you're doing. I feel like an imposter the whole time. I'm like, am I what? Then there's good days and bad days. There's days when you just throw out some random forecast because you're like, I'm seeing cross-eyed. I have no idea what's going on. And the guy that's out there that you're coordinating with, he's like, are you the dumbest person there? And I'm like, today I think I am. Like, can you help me out a little bit? But
Yeah.
it's an interesting community. There's a lot of pride there. It's kind of cool, because it is a hard job, and so you wouldn't, the weather folks have a lot of pride. Like there's the ASVAB score that you have to be a weather guy was pretty high. And it's a tough job. So there's a lot of pride that comes along with just being able to sit there and knock those things out. And then there's a lot of jokes about weather, right? So like it kind of insulates the community, and it's cool, because like you're like it's kind of like growing up playing soccer in the 90s. You're the underdog, and so I kind of gravitate towards those underdog type of organizations, and so I fit in pretty well, I thought.
That's cool. That OJT, it sounds like in nearly every military job, after you've had that excellent training, no matter how good that training is and how comfortable you may or may not be, you're not going to know and not master your skill until you get on the job and start doing stuff and drinking from that proverbial fire hose, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was a good time. I think the only place where I felt like I didn't fit in was I felt like I had more, you know? And
Wow.
so it was kind of weird, because there were people that definitely showed up that wanted to go to the special operations side when we all showed up to Shaw together. But it is one of those things. It takes at least a year, a little bit more than it. So I showed up there in what did I say, April, and I think in March. So it was about 2 years. I think, yeah, I showed up in April of 2004, and in March 2006, I was on Fort Bragg. And so it takes time to, like, you have to get your 5 level. So you have like these qualifications, all these things you have to study and pass these tests, and then you have to do a certain amount of things on the forecasting floor. But during that time, you're getting pretty close to making E4. You figured it out. The job is not that hard anymore. You start to go out into town. You started like pick up hobbies. You started to think about life on the outside. Like, do I want to, like, I was looking into becoming like an exchange student and moving to Australia to go to college there. But so there's a lot of opportunities that become available to you if you just knock out your first enlistment and you go on with the rest of your life. And guys get girlfriends and wives and all the other stuff. And so at the time, we didn't have like this like selection course and this pipeline the way that we do now. But you would see that attrition of like who can hold on to this dream of potentially doing this stupid thing out in combat, and not let life get in the way. So it was an interesting experience.
So with you doing this at this point in time, are you speaking of girlfriend and wives, are you married, or do you have a significant other at this point in time in life?
No, I had like
No.
a girlfriend here,
Okay.
most of the time, but I didn't get married until after my second deployment.
Ah, okay.
So I
Yeah.
had
So
things to do.
yeah, I was about to say that's I not that it's wrong or anything, but I always wonder how the heck guys, either come in, join, and have girlfriend, wives, or get one immediately, and then knowing they're about to have to leave and do that jump. But life is life. You got to do what you got to do and go about it. But yeah, I've always seen your way of doing it. Knock some things out first, and then we'll concentrate on love.
And it's not like I had a plan. I'm just a lucky person.
Hey,
I probably did some
that's the
things that
best thing to be, man.
yeah.
Lucky. Look, ain't no better thing to be than lucky.
Yeah.
That's the best thing in the world to be.
Yeah.
Um, so in South Carolina, as you mentioned, starting to look forward to the special side of the house, and ending up down at Fort Bragg. Is there a process that you have to complete at South Carolina, or do you fill out some paperwork that takes you to Bragg, or what takes you there?
Yeah, the process was fairly simple, and also, again, I had great leadership, I had great people, and so it was, you're supposed to have your 5 level, so you have to pass, like, these tests called CDCs before you're allowed to, like, put in your application to go to the special operations side. I hadn't I had one more test to complete, and I hadn't even completed that test yet. But my chief at the squadron, who was this little lady, and of course she's probably not as old as I thought she was when I was an airman, right? But like, of course, like she's probably 40 something. But this little super old
100 year old.
lady, yeah. Chief Larrabee, she knew that I wanted to do it, so I'd been out there. Some of the SOWT guys had visited our base before, and I'd done some stuff with them, some PT stuff, and she knew that I wanted to do it. So she put in my application even before I passed the final test. She looked at me, she goes, "Are you going to pass this final test?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Cool." And so she gave me the PT test that you have to take before airborne school, and I took another PT test with some SOWT guys before all this got rolling. But like, I think I had orders for airborne school or observing school, whatever, all these things before I'd even met the qualifications to do it. So she was super cool about it, and I had time to work out during my shift. I would go out there and do like my runs and everything. But thank goodness I passed that test. But yeah, so like, again, super supportive organization. The guys came through, gave me the test, everything that I needed. And I think I might have the record or close to the record for the shortest amount of time spent at the hub before going on to the special operations side. You couldn't do it much faster than what I did it.
No, not when you're already having your chief fill out stuff and get the ball rolling before you've even completed or even taken the test, shall we say.
Yeah, she
Uh
was great.
yeah, I love hearing because I mean there are we hear some stories of we've heard some guys get just terrible leaders of them wanting to go to SF, and they're great soldiers, of course, and wanting to end up in SOG. and the sergeant major or the company commander, like, no, you're not doing this. We need you here, this and that. It's always nice. And it seems like every Air Force vet I've spoken to, and especially that we've had on here, has had great leadership that help them progress and not just stay where they are, to keep the group happy, shall we say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think that did shape the way I looked at things for the rest of my career. Like when you get to those higher ranks, if someone's like, I want to go do something else, even if it's not something that you want them to do, man, if they got the itch, let them try. You're only young once. Like, let them go get after it. It's not my life.
How can you stay in the way of somebody's dreams? I mean, that's basically what you're doing. I mean, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I'm glad you at least had a good experience and someone looking out for you like that.
Well, and not to belabor the point, I'm sorry, but like also my commander at the time, he was a big runner, so he was support. Made a friend there while I was there. His name was Nate, and Nate was also going to go special operations. That was his plan. He didn't end up doing it, but man, like I was not smart in the ways of physical training. And so like I had this dude that I was training with. We got into rock climbing and all this other stuff together, and he was really big into physical training. So he pushed me to do things that I probably wouldn't have done on my own. Then I had a commander that wasn't really into running and all this other stuff. I had a chief who was super supportive. Like it's just like everything was easier when I did it. And that's not a joke. It's just that's
you had the perfect system right there for you to make that next leap in your career or life course. Actually, that's awesome. Not many people can say that they've wanted to go SF in their various branch, and their teammate wanted to go with them, or their sergeant or what have you was a long distance runner that was trained. I mean, that's really cool, man. That's really cool. Man, the bottom is just falling out down here. I can hear it. If y'all hear anything that sounds like sizzling or what have you, that is rain. So I apologize.
Nice.
So you mentioned before jump school, I thought you mentioned something else. Did you go straight to Fort Bragg for airborne, or was there another special operations area before you needed to go to Bragg for airborne?
Yeah, so we went to go to Benning for airborne, and you had to do airborne and SEER and water survival, and then the observing course before you could get your assignment to go to Fort Bragg. I went to Fort Bragg. There was a few different detachments you could go to. So I ended up going to observing school 3 different times. The first time I barely showed up there, and my grandma had died, and so again, my commander was super cool. She didn't raise me or anything, but loved my grandma. So he let me go home. Like, I think they actually sent me home for the funeral. And so I showed up at observing school. They sent me right back. I went back for the funeral. I came back to observing school again, and then Katrina hit. So I was like halfway through or whatever it was, and then Katrina hit. And so I left there. I went to airborne and then survival. And then I went back to observing school again. So that was probably the thing that took me the longest, was just to get through observing school because of the things that had happened. And then after observing school, then in March of 2006, I finally made it over to Detachment 5, 10th Combat Weather Squadron at Fort Bragg.
Well, where was observing school?
It was back in Mississippi at Keesler. So
yeah, Katrina definitely rocked and rolled through there. Then I was curious. You mentioned it. I didn't know if it maybe been Texas or Louisiana, but yeah, Mississippi also caught a bad view on that one, man.
Keesler's right on the coast, so we got hit basically with just off the eye of the storm, and it wasn't great. That was a fun experience though, because like I always tell people, I spent 4 or 5 days in a building with families and all these other people. People weren't supposed to use the MREs. Like, all the power went out and all that other stuff. But like, people are heating up their MREs in these buildings. It's wet everywhere. It's disgusting. And then when we left, we actually had to find gas for one person's car to go back to South Carolina. There were a few of us that were there from the base. And one dude's car, I think it was a dude, still had a windshield that was pretty good. And we managed to get enough gas to get to Montgomery, Alabama the first night to get out of there. Yeah, but like after that, sleeping on that tile floor and everything's wet and disgusting. Going to SEER school after that, not to like say too many things, but I ended up in a box.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
it was I don't know if they'd freshly cut it, but it smelled like wood, but it was cold and it was dry and it was amazing compared to Mississippi.
You were, I mean, it sounds like every course you went to, you had something right before that prepped you and had you primed and ready, man.
Yeah. Makes it a
The
lot easier.
box, the box. I always love hearing about that. I was telling a story on for maybe an interview or one of the solo shows about one of the SOG vets that came back and he stayed in, and I think he either was coming back from Germany, he was in dead A, or maybe he was just going. I think it was when he got back, nonetheless. And of course, classified, so no one knew what he had done, and they were gonna made him go through SEER school, and they put him in the box, and they were like, "We're gonna break," saying, "We're gonna break y'all. Y'all are gonna be crying, blah blah blah." And he just sits back and curls up and goes to sleep. And I always thought that was funny. I was like, "Ain't no way you breaking that man. He's a dual CCS and CCC veteran. He was a stud."
The box, no one's bothering you in the box. It might be uncomfortable, but as soon as like if your extremities go numb, they're gonna go numb. Just close your eyes, take a nap. It's glorious.
Literally a long time.
Yeah, it just who knows? Like you have no way of telling the time, so like why worry about it? Just
No,
do it.
yeah, sleep, get it over with and be done, as you said. Um, so did you, when you did make it to air, or when you got to binning for airborne, how'd you enjoy jumping out of the airplane?
What do we say? It's a 3-week course, or I'd say 5-week course shoved into 3 days, 3 weeks. Yeah, whatever it was. It takes forever. It's we call it Air Force Appreciation Course, introduction, because you go there and it's very Army. A lot of huts straight out of AIT or boot camp, running around, and it's a little bit of a culture shock. But I mean, again, I show up there, things work out for me. I'm still an E3 at the time. I hadn't pinned on E4 yet, so I wasn't NCO level. And so I end up in a room with 3 other dudes. But these 3 dudes, I guess at Army basic training, they walk around like, "Hey, are you interested in airborne?" And they're like, "Maybe." So they sign them up for airborne school right out of basic training or whatever. These 3 dudes didn't want to be airborne. And so I'm in a room with 3 dudes, and they all quit like right away, and or fail the initial PT test. So I end up in a room by myself. So I'm able to take one of their mattresses, shove it up into the doorway at night, and make it dark so I can actually get some sleep. The only thing about airborne school was when Katrina hit Mississippi, I'd lost all my uniforms. And so I had one uniform, a winter weight uniform, but it was October, so it wasn't that bad at Benning. And I didn't have black boots. So I went down to Ranger Joe's and bought some black boots that I could afford. They ended up being like winter weight boots with steel toes, which is not ideal, but it's fine. But so like when we'd go to the gravel pit in the morning, we'd do our gravel sessions where you learn how to fall for over and over and over again. And we'd go back to the dorms, or whatever they call them, the barracks. And they're like, "You guys got to be out here in 15 minutes and clean uniforms." I would run up to the dryers. I'd take my uniform off, throw it in the dryer, hit the dryer, go take a shower real quick, come back to the dryer. And then it would just look like a really faded uniform when I came back out. And then I had to just keep washing that thing. But I made it through airborne with one uniform.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah. It was
I
fun.
had no idea about the fresh uniform thing. That is crazy coming. That those black hats, man. I have heard. I know a few of the older guys there were jump masters and taught that were airborne instructors, man, and they absolutely said they did absolutely everything they could to mess everyone up and just make life a living hell.
It wasn't that bad. At least when I went, obviously I didn't go through until 2005. October 2005 is when I went through airborne. It wasn't that big of a deal. I think also, again, everything was easier when I went through. I promise. I think they'd killed a kid for a heat cat or something.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
A few months prior to me going there, which is tragic. But again,
They
when I went through, it was pretty soft. And if it got hot at all, they had like these big shower things outside that they'd walk us through just to cool us down.
Wow.
So I'm not kidding when I'm the luckiest person in the world. I showed up to airborne school. it was what it was. We did the airborne stuff, but like there wasn't any overly aggressive PT or anything else like that. It was dumb, but it wasn't that bad.
Man, I'd hate hearing that for that kid, and I'd forgotten about that story. But man, you ain't lying about being lucky. Jeez.
Yeah.
That is crazy. So 5 weeks, you get your wings. What is the next step for you here? Are you going from there to getting ready to deploy? Is that what you said?
So I go to Bragg, right? So like after SEER school, airborne school, and observing school, I get my assignment to Det 5 at Fort Bragg. So one of the things about SOWT back then is we didn't have like a selection course. You had to be a weather guy first. So the way we used to build SOWT guys was you were a weather guy first, you were a 5-level weather qualified guy, and then we would try to pile the training on top of you. The problem with that is everybody went to all these detachments, and we had detachments with every special forces group, and with the 160th. So the problem was like we provide weather support to all the different SF groups and to the Rangers and the 160th, but there was no formalized training pipeline to get guys really spun up to these special operations level. You know, an airborne and SEER is not really a good selection course. You know what I mean? Like it's the lowest level version of a selection. And so, you know, not to crap all over my old career field, but the difference between the average in SOWT and like your average of like combat control and pararescue, you know, and we were out there, we were, you know, side by side with combat controllers a lot. There was a difference. So unless you had good leadership or unless you took the initiative to get the training, like there's not much you could do about the selection course at that point because the guys were already assigned to you. But like you could put guys through some tough stuff, see who they were, and kind of, you know, rack and stack your guys accordingly, and then make sure that they get all the training required as best you can to make sure they can roll out with these, you know, Green Berets and the other special operations folks that we supported, and not embarrass us. And the fact of the matter is we were like cosplaying soft a lot of the career field, you know, like because it wasn't that hard to get in, and we'd get guys that got in there and all they wanted to do was wear the Army badges and be airborne.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm
gonna keep saying it. I'm super lucky guy. I show up to Det 5. Det 5 is awesome. It's the flagship of all the detachments. That's an inside joke for like 6 people out there that are gonna understand that. But I have great leadership at my detachment. I show up, and within 2 weeks, so they do like my little cherry ceremony, which was a really good time, and they decided that I'm not a complete waste of a human. So your cherry ceremony, you made a face. I'm assuming most of the guys talk about cherry ceremonies and all that.
No, I'm laughing because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, so since we didn't have like a selection course and all this other stuff, what we did was you do a cherry ceremony in the beginning. There was a day, like a few days in, where you show up in the morning and they take you out to breakfast or whatever. It was like maybe 10 o'clock. We go to this Chinese buffet, and this Chinese buffet is disgusting. They buy you food, and they end up, there's like these like squid tentacles that they had there. And so one guy grabbed a bunch of those, put them in a napkin for later. And then they drive you back on base. There was like this abandoned obstacle course. And so basically it's like they give you eggs and they yell at you and you do the obstacle course. And it's, you know, it's not hazing because it was awesome. But at the end of it, like you break so many eggs and you do so many things and eat the squid at the end. Otherwise, you're going to have to run the O course again, you know, and do all the things that they tell you to do. And then at the end, they're like, okay, well, you have, you know, 10,000 push-ups or whatever it was before you can do a jump with us because you're still a cherry because you're a 5-jump chump from airborne school. In order to get your first jump with us, this is how many push-ups and all this other stuff you have to do. And until you get that done, there's a helmet that you have to carry around at all times. And if it gets taken away from you, it adds like 1,000 push-ups to your total that you have to accomplish before your first jump. So it was just like kind of like an old school thing that we probably weren't supposed to be doing by the time I came around, but it was awesome. You know, like you're holding on to the helmet, guys, you know, they could take it away from you whenever they want, but they drag you all over the building, and just, you know, trying to take a shower was real uncomfortable while you're trying to figure out what to do with this helmet and all this other stuff. And there were rules, but like, it was pretty rad. So you go through your charter ceremony, I do all that stuff, but within 2 weeks, I'm at a shooting school, and I go from the shooting school we went to a 1-inch shooting school. I went to rifles only out here in Texas. We turn around, we go up to Fort Campbell for 6 weeks of training. And it's like shooting, comms, basically all the base level stuff that you need to know to do your job in a very basic way. While we were out at Fort Campbell, we got word that one of our guys downrange had been shot. He took a round through the calf. And so we knew that someone was going to have to go replace him, but like it was, I'm a senior airman. I'm an E4. I'm brand new. I don't know what's going on. So it's like, whatever, cool. But we finished that training. We get back to Fort Bragg, and it was really busy at the time. It's like 06, right? So like everybody's busy. Everybody's just come back from deployment, or they're broken or something else like that. Our lieutenant walks out of the office and was like, hey, we have to send someone to replace Rick that had been shot a few weeks prior. We need to get someone out to Afghanistan. And on paper, I was just qualified enough to go. So I got there in March, and by July, I was in Afghanistan. So it was really quick.
Man, that is, I mean, from school to boom, Afghanistan. That is crazy. Were you, you never, from talking to guys, you're never fully ready, or so you think. Did you, how ready were you, so to speak?
Not at all. Not at all ready. You know, like, it was cool though. Like, I'd gotten my cherry blast out of the way. So I was kind of like one of the guys. I'd done some training. I still don't speak the language. So going there's the whole SOCOM architecture and language and how everything works was still so foreign to me. So they're like, hey man, you need to head over to Pope and get your deployment orders. We're going to pencil whip all the rest of the stuff. Like you're going like right now, like really soon. So you don't have time for like all the other stuff that you're supposed to do before you deploy. I'm like, rad. I get back after I go to IPR and get my orders. I get back to my desk, and the guys had left a pile of gear that I still don't know how to use the majority of this crap. It's brand new. It's, all been assigned to me. And like, this is the stuff that you want to take with you. Don't take more than what you can carry. I'm like, cool. And yeah, so like that was, this guy wrote in my little green book, he wrote a name down. He said Siege SOWT. I still didn't even know what that mean. And he's like, hey, look up this guy when you get to Bagram. Awesome. So ripped out by myself, caught a plane out of Baltimore, got to Al Udeid. I'm trying to abbreviate this. I made a friend. I don't even know why he was my friend, but I started talking to this dude, and we're at Al Udeid, and we're supposed to wait like 5 days or something to go into country. I think this dude was an AC-130 sensor operator. So he's like, they were sending a bird just to pick this dude up to take him to Bagram. I'm like, I need to go to Bagram. He's like, dude, just come with me. Check my weapon out of the deed. Didn't tell anybody. Got on a plane with this dude. Froze my tail off all the way to Bagram. I get off the plane. I have no idea where I'm going. I just landed in Bagram the first time, and I'm in Afghanistan. And I get off the plane, and this dude's like, cool, later, brother. Good luck. Fist bump. And he walks off. The crew gets off. They walk off. They know where they're going. I'm like standing there. I have no idea what I'm doing with all my gear. And this bearded guy just happens to be sitting there, and he goes, you a weather guy? And I go, yeah, bro. He's like, hey, I'm on Camp Vance. I was supposed to be here to pick up a Green Beret that came in, but he didn't show up. But hop in the truck, and I'll take you on to Vance. So I did. And that's how I got over onto Camp Vance with that dude.
Was that a SF guy?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
that's crazy.
You
a weather guy?
Yeah, it's just like random. It's like, hey, we have a weather guy coming in. And he just happened to be one of the guys that heard about it. I still have no idea who that guy is, but he got me onto Vance, hooked me up with the people that were, supposed to be linked up with, and then started my deployment. It was pretty awesome.
So where exactly is it FOB, Camp Vance, or
So Vance is on Bagram. So I went to Vance to check in with the Siege SOWT there. They ripped me out from there to go to Kandahar. I went to Kandahar, and that was, I think Camp Brown was the SF camp on Kandahar. And then I stayed there for a little while. And then because what we had a weather guy that briefs weather in like the jock for the guys out there in RC South, I think is what it was. And he was going to leave, and he didn't have his replacement coming in yet. So I just stayed there with him. I learned a lot about weather in Afghanistan while I was there, in like the month I was there. And then he left, the replacement came in, and then they pushed me forward to FOB Cobra, where Rick had been, and he'd been shot. So while I was there, the combat controller that was out there at FOB Cobra and a bunch of other things that had happened. So like I'm sitting in the jock, right, or the talk, and like I hear all this stuff. I'm giving the weather briefings. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and a bunch of guys have been shot out there. The combat controller got killed out there. They had 2 ODAs out there, and one of the officers, I believe he got his arm blown off by an RPG. So I ended up on a helicopter going out to FOB Cobra with the combat controller that's replacing Adam Service, who had passed away out there. And then I'm replacing a weather guy that had been shot in the calf and had to be medevaced out of there. So for a first deployment, with the 6 weeks of training, so I guess 7 weeks with the shooting school, that's all my tactical training on Earth. Minus, I grew up shooting, so I was pretty comfortable with my rifle. But went out to FOB Cobra, and a bunch of the Green Berets that were at the jock were like, bro, keep your head down, which of course terrified me. But yeah, hopped on a helicopter for the first time in my life and headed out to Cobra.
Jeez. Are you with a specific special forces group, or just is there just a single ODA around, or
there were it was third group that was there at the time. I think he's been on a couple documentaries. Bolduck was the guy that was running the jock out there, or however you say his last name. And but we went out there. There's 2 ODAs. There was only 1 officer at the time because the other officer had I think his arm, whatever, RPG. Yeah, and they had a TAC P out there. They had a TAC P as their JTAC, and then I came in with their other JTAC for the other team, and then myself to replace the weather guy. So I think it was 3-1 at the time. So it was
heavy duty.
It's kind of good because it all just happens so fast. You don't have a ton of time to think about it. But it's definitely like you get off that helicopter and it gets pretty real pretty quick. So it was a fun first deployment.
When you get there finally, and you've left the Bagram and gotten to with your ODA and everything, what's the daily life? Are you still doing the overall weather briefings and then going out into the field with the guys? What's your daily life out in the field, shall we say?
So my job mostly is to do like on the spot forecasts, but a lot of observations. But it was summertime, so I got out there. It was late summer, and so the weather was actually pretty stable when I was there. But like the PsyOps guys that were out there were putting out, the radio broadcasts to all the farmers and everybody else like that. So I'd give them the forecasts to put out over the PsyOps channels. I ended up actually kind of being assigned to the SOWT A guys and riding on their truck and hanging out with them a lot. A lot of their equipment was sensitive to, static electricity. So any of your big dust events, they were very sensitive about. And then the majority of our supplies were airdropped in, and the planes wouldn't get very low because it was a spicy area. So our stuff would get dropped. And so it wasn't always just like a weather thing, but they'd drop it all over the countryside. We have to go out there and grab all our stuff, and half the chutes don't open. And so half your supplies are all over the place. And it was a little sporty for me. I was definitely not prepared, but threw my first grenade, learned how to drive a Humvee, shot my first crew serve weapon, all the things that are so like normal for people to learn and do as part of our training pipeline. Now I had to do, downrange, and then doing it live. So when I did end up back in training, and I'm jumping ahead, but like when I did back up in training, I was like, this stuff, from having a selection process and having these things trained from the day one, art is so critically important to your survival, and not just your survival, but the survival of your teammates, that I took that stuff very, very seriously.
And that's crazy. And as we're going to see here in just a bit, no better person to help institute and set up said pipeline than someone who didn't have the benefit of the pipeline to work with. So
there were lots better people. I was just the only idiot that said yes.
Well, you're being too hard on yourself and modest. And I mean, as you mentioned, and you kind of run through it on your first visit with Mike Ritland, but y'all get into a pretty heavy duty ambush on one of y'all's operations. I mean, as you said, you've got to move up. I think the gun truck and the ammo truck to get ammo out, and A10s are coming in. I mean,
Yeah.
crazy stuff. I think I heard one time you got your pistol out of the vehicle.
Yeah, I was an idiot. Yeah. I mean, it was the best thing is, dude, like, again, it's hard to overstate how lucky I am. On my very first deployment, so I show up at Fort Bragg in March. I come back from this deployment in like uh early November. In that span of time, I checked off the list of like all the things that you want to check off as a young man, right? Like, am I able to like fire back in combat? Can I do my job? Am I going to get anybody killed? Am I going to be too scared? Am I going to freeze up? All those questions that we all have, that I wanted to ask myself and to prove that I could do the job. I got to answer those. So I'm a very lucky person. So yeah, I mean, that day it's, we drove into an L-shaped ambush. The numbers we were given were we were jumped by like about 200 Taliban types, and it turned into a kind of an all-day affair. It was like a full 5-hour gunfight, and a lot of interesting things happened. I got my first, the first feeling of feeling like someone is shooting at me and shooting back at that person was an interesting thing. But I give a lot of credit to the guys out at Rifles Only. Andrew out there was my instructor, and I heard his voice in my head. And we call it training for a reason. We don't call it education, because you should be like a dog. When you get the command, when you were the stimuli, when you're approached by the stimuli, you just react and you do exactly what you're supposed to do. Get on target, breathe, squeeze the trigger, head on a swivel, and do your job. So it was interesting. So
Did everybody come out of the ambush okay for y'all?
Yeah. One of our chiefs, the guy that called himself a life-size GI Joe, and that dude was probably like 6'2", and he was huge, and he gave me some really good advice about family and how often you need to call them when you're deployed. But he had his thumb shot off, and that's such a funny story, because it's not, but like, so he's with a maneuver element, right? And he's, I think, with one or two other guys, and they're moving through this village, and they're moving up while the rest of us are overwatching from the vehicles, and they're moving to some guys to take them out. And Brian tells the story. He's like, dude, we got behind this wall, and he's like, so we're checking in, and we're making sure that the boss, everybody knows where we're at, and all this other stuff, because it's a kinetic situation. He's like, and look up, Chief's gone. He's like, oh no, and he hears all this shooting, and then he hears Chief Cup on comms, and he's like, those mother efforts shot me, and all this other stuff. And so Brian goes over there, and he finds like a pile of bad dudes, and Chief with his thumb shot off, shooting his pistol over a wall. So he got medevaced out, but he was fine. Pretty sure I saw him at a Red Robin back in Fayetteville a few months after I got back. But
what a beast, man! What a beast.
Well, the story is, he kicked in a door, and there was like, I think 4 or 5 dudes in there, and they were surprised to see him as he was to see them. So they get into a close range firefight. And if you've ever been to a shoot house, we all wear gloves when we go shoot, like paint at each other and all of the sims, because you focus on a weapon, right? That's why you show your hands, because weapons and all that stuff. So people hyper focus on that. So where he got hit was his thumb, but he dropped a whole bunch of dudes, and then hopped behind a wall and grabbed his pistol, but we got him out of there. But nobody died. Yeah, it's one of those things about my career too. It's just like, no one died while I was actually there, which is kind of crazy.
And especially in an L-shaped ambush with that many hostiles. I mean, that is a testament to y'all as a team, and the good Lord watching out for y'all. That's
There's some good
crazy.
Green Berets out there. There's some good dudes. Like that first deployment, not everybody was super friendly or whatever, and I was a new guy. I looked like I was 12. I was probably like $155. I'm a weather guy on top of it, but all things considered, looking back, right, like, I would have been annoyed by me, right? Like by the end of my second deployment, if version 1 of me from my first deployment would have showed up at our fob, I'd have been like, what is this dude? You've never done any of this stuff, like, this guy is worthless. What are you doing here, bro?
Gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Is this on your first deployment?
That is for my first deployment. So one of the it's funny, I like this picture because one of the first things you do back then was I found out I was deploying, so I had to run my uniforms down to the place near Fort Bragg to get my pockets put onto my shoulder, because that's what all the cool guys did, and that way you could use those pockets and you just write your blood type up there. We didn't all have the signs and all that other crap. So
That's hilarious that it's still going on that way because the SOG guys doing that back in the day and getting the mama sons to put their pockets on like that. That's
yep.
awesome that y'all are still doing that. Pretty cool.
I mean, not all the new uniforms already have all that stuff done, so
Oh
it's
yeah,
different. But
it's the cool guy attire is like Batman. You want for nothing. It's already been thought out.
yeah, so
Um, so after, I mean, as you said, I mean, just a barn burner of a first rotation. What's next for a young guy coming off his first time in combat, his first rotation?
well, when I first showed up at the detachment, my boss at the detachment when I showed up in March was like, "Hey, in January, we're gonna send you to the tail end of the combat controller pipeline to get trained before you do anything else, right?" He's like, "So we're just gonna train you for like the plan was to get me through like a pipeline type training thing before I went to it was called AST at the time, so STTS, the Special Tactics Training Squadron out there at Hurlburt. So the plan when I showed up, they were like, we're going to train you, we're going to put you through a whole bunch of stuff, and then we're going to send you out there as your finishing course before you're deployable. So instead, I went on a deployment and did all that stuff. And then when I got back in November. I went home for Thanksgiving, and then basically just made sure that I was trained up enough, physically fit enough to go out there for the advanced skills training with the combat controllers just coming out of the pipeline. So I went out there to Hurlburt Field, met my wife like my second day I was there, and I was like, dude, I think I'd shaved my head or cut my hair really short. I'm like, all I'm gonna do is train and work out. Of course, like not looking for a girlfriend that's gonna turn into my wife at all. I met this girl, and I did not get as much sleep as I thought I was going to get, because it's like after I get done with my training days, I'm going to hang out with her and do all the. But it all worked. I mean, no, it was fantastic. So her and I, right away, and like I was not a very emotional person, but like the first deployment, people. I think sometimes we don't talk enough about how the positive things that certain situations bring you. So at the end of my first deployment, the guy that I was rooming with, the SOWT guy, he got killed the day I left. So I didn't find out till I landed back at CAF. But seeing how that guy interacted with his wife, his pregnant wife at the time, and all the other things, it makes you, you're a tough kid, right? You got your shell and all this other stuff. No one comes, I don't let anybody in. I'm a rock.
Yeah.
It forces some true introspection and some, looking at your life and what do I actually want at the end. We're all going to die. It becomes very, very real. And so I was a different human when I got home. And so when I met my wife, I was open to like saying certain words and being open to possibilities for relationships and maybe future planning and all the other stuff. So like, again, it all kind of lined up through tragedy. It opened up my, my capacity to like love somebody as however that sounds to you. That's what it did for me. So yeah,
that's beautiful. And especially probably probably at working out, needing someone, especially coming off something like that, put right there, right for you, perfect place, right time. I mean, that's amazing. And especially to find your significant other in the same branch of the military you are, that's pretty cool as well.
yeah. So
Had
I met
she
her, and she was like,
had
I'm
she
gonna
been
go
a
be an officer.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. That's what I
uh
was just fixing to ask is where was she in life at this point?
Yeah, so I was a senior airman still. As an E4. I had a line number for E5. She was an E5, and so when I meet her, she's like, "I'm gonna go." She's going to school at night. She's like, "I'm gonna be an officer. I'm gonna be a pilot." And she had all these goals, and I'm like, "Rad." And she's like, I don't want kids, yada, yada. You know, we're like in our early 20s. I'm like, cool. Like, I don't know what it is. It's the same feeling I got when I got the briefing for like the spec ops side. I got when I was around her, or like a similar feeling, right? Like this is
I'm
what
in.
I want. Yeah, I'm in, no matter whatever it takes. And I think she was a little like, okay, so you're just cool with that? I'm like, I'm cool with it. Like, let's go. And so that was that.
Love it, man. Love it.
Yeah.
Was there a long courtship? Did y'all get married pretty quick there?
No, we got married in '08. So we dated through I came home. I went to AST for like 3-4 months, went back to Fort Bragg in like April time frame. And then I deployed again in July again. So we kept in touch. She was actually part of the headquarters squadron, and I was at the detachment of Bragg. So they would get her on orders to come, or she would get herself on orders to come out and check out our computers or something. I don't know. And so we saw each other a fair bit, and then I deployed again, and then I proposed to her when I came back. And actually, the plan was, you know, I was going to come back, and I'm like, while I was there, the tier 1 unit, which was kind of my goal before I met her. They'd sent down a list of names, and she's at headquarters, right? So she knows everything that's happening. And at this point, everybody knows that we're dating. And they're like, hey, like I was on the list of guys that they wanted to go assess for the next level. And so I called her, and she knows enough to know that if I go up there, you know, like they have an amazing support system, but you know, me being me, if I'd made it, which is it's a huge if, by the way, everybody. I'm not like one of those guys. I definitely would have. No, maybe. I'm a lucky guy, so there's a chance that for some reason they would have said yes. But I struggle with the work life balance, though, dude. And already, like my first year on team, I was gone 330 plus days. Second year on team, I was off station 330 plus days. So I kind of made a choice at that moment, you know, when I was deployed, and I called her and she was crying, and she's like, I don't want you to go up there, or it's, you know, kind of ultimatum-y ish. So I was like, okay, I'm already ring shopping. So like, I'll just, you know, and then again, at the very end of that deployment, I wasn't out there. One of the other guys dies. And so I'm like, I think I need a break. This is weird that guys don't die when I'm there. And so like, it's just this weird psych thing. And I you know, some stuff.
Yeah.
But I was like, I need to do something else. And so actually on my way out of country, they're like, hey, we're setting up a training pipeline. And I'm like, that's a really good idea. And my buddy, who would have been really good for it, they'd already approached him, and they're like, hey, Doogie, we call him Doogie. It's like, hey, do you want to go stand up this training pipeline? And he's like, no. And I was, and so they came to me. So I was at least choice number 2, if not further down the line. And I was like, yeah, I want to go do that. I need a break. And my wife was going to go to college to finish out her last 2 years of college before she commissioned. And yeah, so again, the opportunity just fell in my lap. I was able to spend 4 years, you know, just stateside, setting up the pipeline. My wife got to go to college. We got to spend a lot of time together at the very beginning of our marriage, which was crucial. Get a lot of those little bumps out of the way up front, but you know, that's how my life goes.
And where did y'all decide, or the Air Force, I should say, decide to put the pipeline or the training area?
So I went back to Keesler because that's where the weather school is. So our selection course, well, we basically took the combat control model and we jumped on top of that. Because our courses, they went through air traffic control school and my guys went through weather school, which were both at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi. But also because, and I hate to say it, but I'll say it, combat controllers produced a great product. Like those guys, you know, like I was deployed with those guys and we worked with those guys. Man, ODAs would not go outside the wire without JTAC. And the vast majority of the guys doing the JTAC role for the soft guys were combat controllers. So we're like, why would we reinvent the wheel when they already know what they're doing? They're cranking out the best killers that the military has to offer, and both of our like long schools, the academic schools, are in the same location. So I went to Keesler because also my guys had to do a permanent change of station to go there because the weather school is so long. So the combat controllers, they were able to do their selection course in San Antonio after basic training, and then they would just TDY to their other schools because their schools weren't that long. So I went to Keesler because my guys would actually PCS to me, and then they would TDY from there to like Airborne, SEER, and the apprentice course before they went to Hurlburt Field. So I went there. My wife went to Southern Miss for her ROTC stuff, and I got there in July of 08. So I went to free fall school after that second deployment because I needed a free fall so I could still jump, and I didn't have free fall yet. So I had knocked out free fall school, and we got married and then moved to Mississippi.
Free fall school. I love y'all's photos and love hearing about that. That's still never jumped out of an airplane, but man, the various ways people will sling themselves out and at the various heights always amazes me.
Dude, to get my free fall instructor was so rad. He was an old retired Marine Force recon dude.
Oh, wow.
And he kind of reminded me of like a Walter Matthau type, like deep voice and just like very dry, If you could get this dude to say you did a good job or to crack, it was like the best day of your life. And I remember I was struggling one day, or I struggled throughout that course. I'm a tense person, so free fall did not go well for me. It took all 25 jumps, I think, for me to pass. But I was struggling. I was doing the ruck jumps, and you jump out, you come off the hill because we're at the Navy course, and you do a 360 one way, 360 the other way. Then they point a direction, and you go, and then you track. Right, you bring your arms down, you do like a little bit of a delta dive as you track in a direction, and then you come out of that and you pull, and you come in. So I was struggling a little bit with the ruck, and I think I was pretty close to passing. But he was like, "Bro, you're doing okay." He's like, "But your track, I'm just not seeing it." And so he's like, "I want you to really get into your delta," right? He's like, "I want you to be real aggressive about it." And he's like, "And when you feel like you need to pull out of it," he's like, "I want you to hold it even longer." He's like, "Because your tracks are really short." He's like, "I'm not sure I can pass you." Super, super cool about it. I'm like, "All right, let's do it." So I go out, I do my real shaky turns. And he's like, "Yeah, shaky turns." And then he points, and they're all filming this, right? And all you see is I point that direction, and he's like, "Bro, you told me to be aggressive." All you see is the bottom of my boots, and I am diving, and I'm going. That's the fastest I've ever gone, and I'm holding it, and I'm like, "I'm not sure I should be good doing this," but he told me to hold it even longer than I thought I was supposed to hold it. And in the video, you see him trying to catch me. He couldn't catch me. Like, I was just full head down delta.
Damn.
I started to see the hills out there in Southern California start to rush up at me. And so I come out of it, and I look at my altimeter, and I didn't even wave off. I just pulled immediately because I was coming up on like 2,000 feet. Like my device was about to go off pretty soon, right? At the schoolhouse, right next to the drop zone, there's like these shade structures where everybody packs their chutes, and everybody stands under the shade structures and watches everybody come down. I open over the shade structure so they don't see me open. So I just fall into my downwind and turn it on final. And my instructor just zips down as fast as he can and like lands, right before me or right after me. So I'm packing up my chute. He's coming over to me. I'm like, I'm getting kicked out of the school because I had a low pool. And he comes over to me. He's like, "Don't worry about it." He's like, "Follow me." So I pack up my chute. I drop it off. I follow him into the classroom. He plays the video. He's like, "You did exactly what I told you to do." He's like, "But don't ever do that again, and watch your altimeter." All right. I'm like, "Okay." He deletes the video, and we move on.
Wow, what a guy, man.
Yeah. So he's like, "Nobody saw. You did what I told you to do." Because he did. He told me to hold that track. But he's like, again, though, like, I'm a lucky dude. He was like, he wasn't mad. He was like, he's kind of like proud. He's like, "You pulled out of it." He's like, your device didn't go off, all the things. And so I passed free fall school by the skin of my teeth.
Holy cow, man. That is I want to try it one day. It looks so fun, but I hear stuff like that, and I am a panicked person. I know I'd probably pass out. I don't think I could do it, dude. That'd be a limp body and someone having to rush down to grab a hold of me.
Well, yeah, you do
Tandem.
Yeah,
Do a
do a
tandem.
tandem.
I need to think about that. There's a place right down the road that does it actually, and I didn't even think about tandem.
Yeah,
That
you'll
way,
be
if I
all right.
do go limp, someone will be right there to pull a shoe for me.
And you'll still have the video, so it'll be all right.
Absolutely. So as with every new thing, which is interesting, how but having the benefit of using, as you mentioned, the CCT framework, how long did it take to implement the entire new pipeline and y'all get that initial class going through for them to be newly qualified, shall we say?
I got there in July of '08. I don't think we got students until it was March or April of '09. Were the first SOWT students to show up in the pipeline, at least at Keesler. There's like a 2-week selection course down at in San Antonio, but it took a while to get all the paperwork done. So I show up there. The controllers that were there weren't tracking that we were setting up the pipeline. The weather schoolhouse, which I fell under, they weren't really tracking it very well. They'd received the funds that they'd already spent to set up the pipeline, and so just like everything else, the logistics, the paperwork, learning how to try to help write curriculum, which it was very painful for me, and then trying to find bed space for the guys, things you don't even think about as a still really brand new staff sergeant. I'm an E5. I don't know anything about anything, but I'm like buying beds and stuff and finding space on base for them to live and like getting things
You're
cleaned
building the
out.
infrastructure. I mean, literally, you're building it
Yeah.
here.
Well, I mean, I have a piece of it, right? Like, so
Well,
I'm an E5. I can't do anything by myself. Like at the time, right? Like I'm still a young dude. I'm only 26 years old. It
jeez.
felt like I was doing everything by myself, but looking back, there was a lot of stuff happening without me. I was just like the last person in a long line of effort to make things happen. So, but yeah, it was painful. I had to go through a lot of the courses to learn how to write the paperwork and do all this other stuff. But just like anything else in life, right? It was a very painful 4 years for me, but I learned a lot. Interacting with the students and running guys through the pipeline and seeing the product that was going to come onto the teams for my career field and seeing what these guys had to go through was awesome. Like the first gen SOWT guys that came out of that pipeline were pipe hitters. They were some of the best that we've ever had. You're never going to change my mind on that. They were animals. I know what they went through because I was the guy probably doing a lot of the stuff, like making their day-to-day life harder than it had to be all the time. Um,
Did you
so yeah,
instruct that first group, or were you observing the first group, or were you
yeah, I,
were
I
you
was an instructor.
okay?
So
Wow.
it was cool because like I had to learn how to be an instructor in the pipeline from the combat controllers, but also I didn't have any emotional attachment to the pipeline. So I was able to like try to like do some weird things. Not everything I tried worked, but like I didn't have any memories of what it was like in the pipeline the way that they did. So I had no emotional attachment to it. So trying to optimize the pipeline and to make sure that my guys were the best that they could be by the time they left there. I learned a ton about human performance, about curriculum, about Air Force in general, the logistics and all the other stuff, getting good at writing emails. Um, you know, I had a lot of really good mentors, but it was it was radical, and those guys. And then when I went back on team, all those guys are there, So it
That's
was it was
crazy.
incredible.
Man, I mean, I mean, that's you'll get mad at me for overblowing it, but I mean, that's like Delta standing up, or one of the buds being formed instead of the UDT schools. I mean, you've got a place in Air Force history here for implementing a new pipeline for operators to further the combat aspect of the Air Force, man.
It was right place, right time. I got lucky. I made a bunch of mistakes, but yeah, it was to just be a part of that. It's funny living in like the social media space now too, where guys, it's funny because some young guys will hop on there and be like, you didn't even go through the pipeline, you were grandfathered in, and I'm like, I know that, I know that better than anybody knows that, and I don't want to make too big of a deal about it, but I'm like, every career field has the guys that had to make the changes, right? And so it's okay. You're right, but the career field is way better off now than when I showed up, and it had a lot to do with a lot of people, and I was just lucky to have a hand in some of that. So it was super rewarding.
Absolutely. I mean, I can imagine, especially that first group of guys getting out and or going through and graduating and seeing them sent off into the world, shall we say, had to be a hell of a good feeling for you, man.
Oh
That's
yeah,
really, really cool.
yeah.
Um,
They were awesome.
love that. Love it. So did you end up doing another deployment? I thought I heard you mentioned working with seventh group or something again on a crisis response team or force or
Yeah, so I had the 2 deployments before I became an instructor, and then I did 4 years as an instructor because at the time all of our instructor tours were 4 years. I come back out, so I was gonna get out, but my wife was like, "I know you miss being on team." I'm like, "I do miss being on team." So I went back to Hurlburt Field. We went. Um, that's when my wife got pregnant, and so our first baby was on the way. And so I show up back on team, and honestly, my skills, my tactical skills, everything I had kind of. It's not like you forget everything, but you have to retrain up for everything again, right? So I wasn't the most tactically proficient guy around, and so we did a bunch of different things back then. And one of the rotations that we had to cover down on was to support the 160th,
oh
the SOAR guys.
yeah.
No one wants to do that rotation because all it is weather. So you're a one deep weather guy for a certain number of the locations that the 160th guys are flying every single night, and all you're doing is weather stuff. Now, again, I've been on 2 ODA rotations, and those are challenging in their own way because you're out there doing stuff. I'm telling you what, the 160th rotations, I did 2 of those. I did when I first got back there. I basically rolled into a train up and deployed for the 160th. And then when I got back, they switched me teams, and then I did another 160th rotation shortly after that. Dude, being one deep and being good enough at weather to like earn your way onto that team was maybe the hardest thing I'd ever done in my career. Um, but
I
those
can't
guys are
imagine. Yeah.
incredible.
I can't imagine having to get them their forecast because they do crazy stuff when it's perfect weather. I can't imagine having to get them to where they're, knowing the cloud height and to where they can come in and do what they're wanting to do. That's crazy. And it was that always, as you mentioned, when you before the pipeline and all of that, was that always the two things for a special operations weather airman to do, either special forces group or task force 160th, the night soccer guys or
Yeah, or the Rangers. So
Ranger?
basically, so SOWT was use of SOC support for
Okay.
the vast majority of stuff that we did. Um, so yeah, and we'd always done that. But dude, like those guys, uh, first of all, helicopter pilots are basically weather guys. There's not that much that I know that they don't know. They just don't want to put their own forecast together, and they're not qualified to sign off on their own. -1 is their forecast, right? So you can't fool around with those dudes. They it's like when they look at you and they're like, I know more than you do. It's like, yeah, you probably do. So here it is. So it's it was really good. But once you get in with those dudes, that they will, once you're on the team, you're on the team, and they're fantastic. But like you run into situations with them where the way the Air Force forecast system works is like it's like anything over 3 miles is basically the same thing. We forecast for like certain like sets of weather. With those guys, you'll be like, hey man, so in this mountain pass, you're looking at about 800 meters of visibility. They're like, okay, is that 500 meters? Is that 600 meters? Is that 700 meters? Or is that 800 meters? They're like, I need you to tell me your best guess on what you think that's going to be, like down to like and they're like, we're going to go no matter what, but like, I need to know exactly what you think it's going to be. No playing it safe and no any of this other stuff. Trent, tell me exactly what you think the weather's going to be right there, because we got to go right now. So it's maybe the best place to be a weather guy and the hardest place I was ever a weather guy.
Man, and as you said earlier, those guys are no joke. I mean, they are well the tier one of helicopter pilots. I mean, they are the kit and caboodle.
Dude, and everybody can say whatever they want about the ground pounding tier 1 units and all that other stuff, and those guys are great. Everybody's great.
Wow.
Nothing happens without the 160th. The 160th guys, the most professional organization I've ever been around. Like I'm a fanboy, admitted fanboy of those guys, and I will always be, because they're fantastic.
I mean, they've literally played a part, except for the Eagle Claw. I mean, everything since then, every cool thing that's ever happened with the tier one groups, they were the boys driving. So
Yeah.
if you like anything about the SEALs or CAG or the Air Force side of things, the Special Tactics Squadron guys, they're driving. So you can't help but love and respect the hell out of those guys, man. Some of the interviews on YouTube, you hear them, and it's just like it's like a throwback to the Vietnam guys. Just, I mean, flying it till the 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 thing falls apart in the sky, basically. I mean, damn.
Yeah. There's not a lot of risks they won't take to save somebody or to do the right thing or to make the mission happen. Like if it has to happen, they'll make it happen.
Mm, mm. What a testament. I mean, that, you can say what you want about leadership and the politics and all that, but when you separate it at all, God, our military and the men and women in it, you can't help but respect what goes on and what you guys are doing, guys and gals. Man.
Hey, do you mind if I take like a real quick break?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Right, I'll be right back.
Yep. All righty. We've got we're actually about to finish. I'm sure he has to use the restroom. But we're here towards the last end of his career here. There's some stuff actually we cannot talk about because he was doing some even more cool guy stuff, shall we say, other than supporting the 160th. Yes, Michelle, the 160th. I mean, they remind me a throwback of the Vietnam bird dog pilots and the helicopter pilots of hanging out the windows with their CAR-15s or pistols or throwing grenades. I mean, I've heard so many stories. Greg Coker being one of the guys hanging out with an MP5, throwing hand grenades. I mean, just crazy. You got to respect them. But I was extremely interested hearing about the weather aspect of this. That I'd been interested in it because I was reading a book recently on the Sante raid, and actually had been emailing with one of the air weathermen that had helped put together the forecast for the raid, and some of the stuff he couldn't, of course. Oh, he's back. There you are. I was talking about some Sante stuff and the airmen we were talking about offline.
Yeah.
But yes, so you mentioned doing 2 spin-ups with the Night Stalker lads. Is that your last combat deployment? I thought I remember, are you already at Hurlburt here, or do you end up going and being stationed down there full time here after this deployment?
Yeah, so I did the 2 SOAR deployments, and then it's funny because I got home from the second one, and you're supposed to have time off after you get home and all this other stuff. But the 7th group, CRF, which existed at the time, they requested the full special tactics package for their next cycle of the CRF, and we had never had a SOWT guy at the 7th group CRF before, and so they wanted a pararescue guy, a combat controller, and a weather guy. And so I was home not that long. And so and it's one of those things too. We talk about this where it's like the by name request, type of thing where the boss comes to you and is like, hey man, I want this done right. And by this time, am I a tech sergeant yet? I think I'm a tech sergeant. I'm an E6. I was an E5 for a long time. So like I'm an E6, and I'd been around and I'd done a bunch of stuff, and he's like, we need someone to go up there. And my wife, being my wife, who is an officer at this point, but like she still knows all the guys, and so she gets frustrated. And I'd done these back-to-back rotations, and we had a kid, and so life is just like do easing up. But like when they're like, hey man, we need you to go do this to stand this program up. It's real hard to say no. So of course I didn't, because I'm an idiot. And so I went out there as the first SOWT guy for the CRF, which was really, really cool because I was able to put. We worked it out where the pararescue guy made the most sense with the assault team. The combat controller, who does have some weather observing training as part of air traffic control and a bunch of other stuff that they do, put him with the recce team, where they didn't need necessarily a full-time weather guy with the recce team. As cool as that would have been, but those guys, they got it. Those guys were fantastic. But they had this newer thing called like the Intel Fusion Cell, right? The nerds in the background that do like some of your like tag, track, locate, and some of the other digital cyber type activities, and some of the plainclothes activities. And so I got put in there with those guys. And so it was really, really cool. And that way too, like anything that's happening, I'm kind of like behind the scenes. And then I can do like the traditional weather stuff, which is where we make our money, which is kind of where the career field kind of started to fall apart when guys forgot that, not to sound like a nerd, but we were special operations weather, not special operations shooter. So it was cool because I was still able to do the weather stuff and learn a lot about the other side of the fence too, and go through some of those classes and training and with those guys that were the secreter squirrels up there at the criff.
That is super, super cool. And where this deployment, are you able to mention where it took place?
So with the criff, it wasn't a deployment. It was you're on standby, so you're like on a 2 or 3 hour leash to blow out at any time, and in case there's a crisis in SOC South in like South America, where 7th Group that was their area of responsibility, right? And so the only place we really went out of country was Belize. We went down there for some exercises and a few other things. There's always like a little bit of real world stuff going on because, our adversaries are always playing in South America and doing different things. And so there's it's kind of like an exercise mixed with some other, and being part of the Intel Fusion Cell, like you're probably a little more aware of some of the other things that we're down there to do and to keep an eye on. But it was really cool. Those guys were fantastic. I don't know why they got rid of the criffs because it was a pretty good program. It was probably expensive, but it was awesome.
That Intel Fusion sounds like that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
The stuff you described in that, especially doing some plain close stuff, that sounds like that could get real interesting.
Yeah, those guys. I mean, it's everything that you want it to be, right? Like it's cool. So, and then you have like visibility on everything, like I said, and it was cool in Belize too because we had our after all the stuff that happened, and then like the target moved inland into Belize, and so our recce team goes after them. So we send out the recce team into the jungle. That's their job. And they were like going black on water and food and all this other stuff. And the 160th comes down, the whole SOC South people show up. First of all, the SOC South leadership thought that we had guys in the jungle and it was notional and they weren't actually out there. We're like, no, our recce guys are actually out there. We got helicopters ready to go. We want to send in the assaulters so they can PID what they're supposed to, and we can finish out the exercise and get everything done that we're supposed to get done. However, the clouds were moving in off the coast and they're getting stuck on these mountains and the ceilings were super, super low and the helicopters couldn't get in there. So our guys are like starting to run into like almost a real world, situation. And so I get with the 160th guys and their weather guy, who I knew, who was a bro. And it's like, dude, we got to figure this out. So him and I come up with this like 1 hour window that we think that our guys are going to be able to get in there. The helicopters get in there. The assaulters can do their thing, get back on the helicopter and get out of there before the weather closes in. And it sounds super nerdy, but like it was tense, like, are we actually going to be able to get the helicopters in there? And so we have this hour. So I'm blowing up like my controller and the recce guys. And I'm like, hey man, what are the clouds? What are the clouds? What are the clouds? They're like, dude, stop hitting us up. And I'm like, I need to know. Launch the helicopters. They go in there, clouds open up. They get in there, they do their thing, and they're pulling out. And they said as they were leaving, the clouds were closing back in. And I remember that was one of the most rewarding things because it's like we had like some general, the SOC South general walked up to me and he was like, bro, are you sure this hour is going to be the hour? And that's the hardest part out of the weather guys because like how not sure you are. You just got to look at them and be like, yep, that's 100%. Go launch it.
Man.
That probably took a couple hours off my life. That stress.
I can't imagine. I mean, some of those forecasts, and this one being a prime example. I mean, lives are at stake here. I mean, this is the big show. This ain't a 5 o'clock news forecast here.
Yeah, but it was good. I mean, I'm pretty sure the 160th weather guide probably did way more work on that than I did, but we made it work.
You were in there with it, man. You were in there with it. Jeez. So when you get with do you end up after that, is this where you end up with the 23rd or in Special Reconnaissance? I thought I saw on Mike's podcast.
Yeah, so while I was at the CRF, so I got assigned from the 10th Combat Weather Squadron, which got disbanded, and they sent all the weather guys to the Special Tactics Squadrons, which I thought was pretty rad. It didn't bother me at all. Opinions vary. So I got back to the CRF, and I go to the 2-3 STS, and so for 2014 with the CRF and everything, I was stateside. It was pretty stable. And then in 2015, I went to a pavement course and the survey course for like airfields, a lot of the stuff that the controllers do, so that I could be, I could interact with combat control stuff outside. I couldn't do air traffic control stuff, obviously, but a lot of like the surveying the runways and telling planes like how many times they could land and take off and is it good or not. I went through a bunch of those courses so I could, be a more well-rounded special tactics guy. On top of the weather stuff while I was at the 2-3. And it was cool. Those guys were super rad. I remember walking into the op super office and I was like, hey, I want to send myself and a bunch of guys to like the survey course and this like a civil engineering course so we can drill into runways and do all the stuff that we need to do to like make these assessments. And he's like, yeah, go. And I was like, rad. So all that kind of led up to on that last deployment that was going on, I thought I was finally going to go to Africa and do like the I think I'm pretty sure I was slated to go to Uganda, where you're like staying at the embassy, and there's like an air route all the way across Africa, and a bunch of people and weather and a bunch of other stuff that you keep track of from Uganda. And I didn't end up going there. I ended up going to the Middle East again because I was a team sergeant for one of the special tactics teams. So I was the weather guy, the team sergeant, and I was the only like pavement qualified guy on that team at the same time. So while we were setting up for what ended up setting up for the invasion of Syria before the election, we did a bunch of work. We staged out of Kuwait and bounced around in civilian clothes and did a bunch of stuff. So that was a really good time. It was myself, special tactics officer, and a small pile of combat controllers, and we had a pretty good time.
That sounds awesome. I always enjoy hearing the special tactics squadron stuff. It sounds like the Air Force on that side of the house really gets into some crazy. So, well, I mean, everybody does really, but I mean, I really enjoy hearing about the special tactics squadrons.
What was really cool about that one is that was the only deployment I went on where like I was surrounded by like Air Force guys. It was just a bunch of air. Like we weren't attached to anybody else. We were our own maneuver element. The SOWT commander knew who we were. We had to brief her, and she was super rad. And so it was so Air Force driven, doing Air Force things with Air Force bros. So that was a really cool experience to be able to kind of end my deployments that way. And we got a lot of really good work done, and yeah,
I can imagine y'all were quite busy leading up to said invasion of Syria. I can't imagine all of the stuff y'all were getting into for that. God Almighty.
A little bit of stuff.
And you mentioned that being your final deployment. What did you end up doing as you started winding down, shall we say?
So going back, before I went back on team after my first instructor tour, my wife and I sat down, and she's like, "You want to go back on team?" And I said, "Yes." And everybody remembers I said that. There was another part of that conversation where I go, "Babe, remember, I was off station 330 plus days when I was on team. I was only on team for 2 years. I knocked out 2 deployments and a whole bunch of other stuff. I have a hard time saying no. Like that's just who I am. If work comes to me, I'm like, yes, let's do it. It doesn't mean I'm good at stuff. I'm good at saying yes. So 3 years back on team, 3 deployments, a CRF rotation, and a pile of TDYs. And my wife was like, we had our daughter. I missed her second birthday on that last deployment. My wife was like, she ended up becoming a personnel officer. So she's working at A1 at the AFSOC headquarters. And of course, A1 controls where everybody goes and all the assignments and all that stuff like that. And so her boss was like, where do you want to go? And she's like, I want to go back to training. Trent's going back to training because my husband can't be gone this much. And that's good. I've been around the family, all good things. I feel like I knocked out with only 5 years of team time total. I think 5 deployments, CRF rotation, all those other things was pretty good. So we went back to San Antonio to go back to the training command, and the thing that I swore I was never going to do again. And I ended up back in the Air Education and Training Command.
I mean, it's amazing, and you mentioned it rightly so how lucky you were. I mean, you have on the weather side where I mean, you got to do a ton of a jack of all trades, so to speak, here with what you were able to do. That and when you took this final training adjunct here, shall we say, how long did you stay in the training field before you said, I put enough time in here for Uncle Sam?
The rest of my career. So yeah, I retired after 20 years. And so we showed up here in 2015. And then I retired in 2020, early February of 2024. And so when I got here, I was an instructor for the folks that were kind of in between courses in the beginning. And they left me there because my wife, we didn't know it at the time, but personnel officers deploy often. And we didn't know because in AFSOC, they're really good about, I was on team and AFSOC knows I'm on team. So any deployment that would have come down the pipe for my wife was an automatic no. And AFSOC is really good about protecting their people and taking care of their people that way. However, we had no idea. So she's like, I want to spend more time together as a family. We come to San Antonio and immediately she's hit with a deployment, and she ended up doing 3 deployments while we were still in from San Antonio. So I spent more time being stay-at-home dad than anything else. But I did the battle instructor, which was the guys in between courses. And then I was an instructor over at the SOWT Selection Course. And then when we stood up the prep course, which we modeled after the Navy SEAL course, an 8-week course before they go to their selection, I was part of that team. I left there as the ops soup. And then while I was there towards the very end is when I got the phone call from my buddy up at the Pentagon. And he says, hey, dude, we're not SOWT anymore. We're going to be Special Reconnaissance. He's like, so you are our AETC guy. I spent more time in the training side than anybody else. And I had a fairly decent understanding of how the entire command works. I've done a lot of things. And so we spent the next, year trying to get the paperwork done for that. And then they moved me up to the headquarters of the training command to be the MAGCOM functional manager, overall training, all 3-level training for Special Reconnaissance after we built the new pipeline. And then I retired from there.
Wow.
So.
What was it like doing was it just a name change, or was it a total rebranding and everything going from SOW to Special Reconnaissance?
So this was not our idea. So one of the problems with SOWT, structurally, was we still belonged to the weather career field. So when you made E9 as a SOWT guy, you belonged to weather. We were still one Whiskey 0X2 as SOWTs when we kind of branched off into quote unquote our own career field, and we got the pipeline. However, we still belong to big weather. Big weather doesn't always understand what to do with you. For example, everybody thinks that they're different, and it's part of the problem is from us telling regular weather people to, that they're nerds and all that other stuff. The relationship wasn't always great. I won't use the example I was going to bring up, but so weather didn't know what to do with us. And then they would fight with AFSOC, Special Tactics, because Special Tactics is like, this is what the guys should be doing. And the weather's like, we're not going to do that, blah, blah, blah. And so there was a bunch of stuff that happened. The Pentagon got involved. And then at some point, the Pentagon was like, they sat down. They're like, hey, we need a new capability. And it seems like these guys are just getting fought over by their multiple sets of dads. And their environmental reconnaissance, any of those, they looked at what we were supposed to provide SOCOM by way of capability and the numbers that we were assigned. And they said, we think this is a good fit for this. It's really not that big of a leap to go from what they're doing now and all the stuff that they're starting to get into Special Reconnaissance. So it had nothing to do. We weren't up at the Pentagon being like, we want to be not weather guys anymore. We want to be Special Reconnaissance. So the word came down and they said, make this happen. And so we did it. We didn't have any chiefs. We didn't have any E9s in the beginning because all those guys were weather guys. And they didn't belong to us. And so it was, I had a lot of meetings with myself. I was a Master Sergeant at this time, another Master Sergeant, and our new career field manager, who was a brand new E8. And there were a lot of other guys involved. And we had get-togethers to talk about all this other stuff. But us three would spend hours on the phone going over the paperwork on how we're going to structure this new career field. Reaching out to SOCOM, being like, "Hey, these are the requirements that we're being asked to fill. How do we make sure that we're filling these requirements in the way that SOCOM would be happy with this capability?" It was a big, it was a lot of work, but it wasn't that big of a leap. You know what I mean?
Mhm. That's that is crazy. And man, yeah, when the Pentagon says something's coming through and doing it, then everybody's got to say, how high do you want us to jump there, man?
Yeah, and it was the Air Force guys that asked for it. So it was the capability was built to support the Air Force, and so some people will be like, "Hey, how come, Rangers have recce dudes? Everybody has recce dudes, right? The Marines have recce dudes that are really good at it, and all this other stuff." It's like, hey, well, our sights are on something a little bit different, where we exist to support the Air Force first, and then whatever SOCOM needs us to do also, but. We're building this for the Air Force for that future fight, that pure environment, those capabilities that we're going to need to come out on top in those conflicts during those inflection points.
Wow, man, oh man, that as I said, you have definitely had one heck of a career here.
It was a
Is
good time.
is that what was is that where you I know you retired as you said. Did you uh go contracting? Did you were you done with military and the other aspects of military contracting and such, or did you jump right back into something?
No, I took a break. It was really cool. Talking about retirement, when it comes to like general retirement advice, like getting out of the military, I'm awful about that. I didn't do any of the things that I told you to do. Of course, it still worked out for me because I'm me. So don't do what I did. I'm just a very, very lucky and blessed individual. And by the way, my wife retired as a major like 2 months before I did, and she's in the A1 world, so she knows everybody. So any mistakes that I make, not that she doesn't get frustrated with me, but she was able to go in and take care of things and make sure that I got taken care of. So I got a lot of things going for me that most people don't. However, my wife had a very interesting career as well. And she worked her butt off. She's much better at all things Air Force than I am. She's she really cared about the mission. Like when she became an officer, like her whole thing was to take care of the airmen. Like, and she never said no to a deployment. She and I don't want to give away like say any details, but like the her body and everything took a toll. Like it was tough. Like she never said no, and she worked her butt off. So she retired 2 months before I did. And one of the things that we did was that first summer that we were retired, we didn't do anything. Like what the kids got out of school, and we were like, we're gonna go to Vegas to visit my in-laws, and we're like, when do we have to be back? We don't have to. We don't have to take leave. We wake up and make money. And we had enough money to get to wherever we're gonna go. My wife was already looking at like a GS job that she was gonna take, and but like just that time to road trip and to spend the summer with our kids and with each other, and just to reestablish who we are, find ourselves again, and really establish those relationships was really key for us. So by the time we did go back to work, it wasn't just like back to work. Like we figured out who we were as civilians a little bit. And then she ended up with a GS job. And then I was like, dude, I'm just going to write a book and do podcast stuff and media. And I was working on a book, and then I got a phone call. My buddy, the guy that was the first choice to go stand up the pipeline stuff in the beginning, because he's awesome. His friend is the co-owner of a company doing some pretty radical stuff down here for the basic training folks. They're a human performance company. So they reached out and they're like, hey, we think we need a military guy on our team in San Antonio to work in the training command. And my buddy was like, you should call Trent. And so they called me again. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have any of those other things. I'm sorry for everybody that's listening if your life is never works out the way that you want it to, but I have a good attitude and I smile a lot, and I'm pretty sure that's why it happens. But they hired me, so I've been working there for a little over a year and a half, I think.
That's awesome, man. Jeez, you just do happen to find your way into some sweet deals, as Billy Wall used to say, some real good deals.
And that's not to mention the podcast thing, right? Like, so like, dude, if I could give anybody retirement advice, man, a lot of guys struggle when they get out, like losing their tribe. Man, I get to get on once or twice a week with two of my best friends in the world, a combat controller and a pararescue guy, and rap about whatever we want to rap about. And it's super awesome. So I think that drop off that happens for a lot of people, it didn't happen for me. Like, it's weird. Don't get me wrong. Taking off the uniform for the final time and looking at it is weird. Like, I leave my my old uniform top on the back of my chair because I hated wearing my uniform, and it stayed on the back of my chair for most of my career. I'd pretend to start putting on my uniform sometimes, unless I had a real good reason to put it on. I'd probably just sit at my computer or whatever. But when you take it off for the final time, it takes a while to like figure it out. But man, I haven't had any huge struggles.
Love hearing that. That is, and especially now, much like wars have passed, but especially now with the seems like the separation with technology and all that. It's glad to hear all of the help that vets are starting to get. All the vet-owned businesses to where they're helping their fellow veterans. I mean, you've got SEALs on this side, you've got Force Recon and MARSOC guys doing their thing, you've got you Air Force lads doing your thing. So it seems like it's at least a great community being built. I mean, there's still a lot of numbers. I follow several SF pages and other military pages, and we're still having vets we're losing, but it's nice to see such a strong community being built with all of you guys, and glad to see all of the YouTube infighting has started to kind of slow down amongst the various vets and all of that. That was starting to make me bummed out there for a while. Seems like y'all kept y'all's distance from it though the entire time, so that was pretty.
We decided early on that we're a positive channel, and we try to be positive for the vast majority of stuff we do. It's not that we don't get on complain every once in a while and call people out for certain things, but we're not going to live in that space, man. Like you can't scale negativity. It just doesn't work like that. Like one of those podcasts that was super popular for a little bit, like those dudes are like apparently in a legal battle, and man, you just can't live in hate.
I love him, but they one or two shows doing something like that's okay, but it was a continual call out on some stuff, and I'm kind of glad he's doing a different route now. But yeah, he's in the thick of it with old RO and a hell of a legal battle. So I said people were asking me, and I'm like, one, I didn't serve in the GWAT or any aspects of serving, so my opinion on that doesn't matter. So I said right off, I'm not ever going to talk about that. So but I'm always glad to see channels that steer away from that. And y'all's One's Ready is not only, as you mentioned, fun, y'all getting on there and talking about non-military stuff, some military stuff, just everyday happenings. It's just a load of fun. It's I was a little late to the party, but did find it, and I am subscribed and a regular listener now. So
thank you so
much. Absolutely love what you guys are doing,
dude. And like, not to like derail it, I know we've been on here for a while, but like when you think about legacy, you know, like what are you leaving for your kids? You want the legacy of, and I get accountability, I really do. But man, like just getting on there and living in that space, like it's got to affect you in a negative way. Like I want my kids to, if they ever, first of all, my kids are never going to care about anything that I do, which is having kids is the most like humbling experience ever. They don't care. I like to tell the story. It's like tangent. I did a 25-meter underwater I like to do them with a kid on my back. Right. And, my kids don't care. They're like, yeah, do it again, old man. Go dance, monkey. Like they have no conception that like being able to do that, and I'm like guppying like crazy because I'm dragging a kid through. Like they're up there breathing, and I'm like trying to do the underwater, and it's like they don't care. You know, you're just their dad. You're a dork. You're an old man that doesn't understand anything.
Right for
like, yeah, it's fine. It's good. but what you're leaving them, it's like, man, leave the world in a better state than what you found it. And there's a place, like I said, there's a place for accountability, but it goes beyond that often with a lot of these, pages.
Having y'all and to close out on that, having y'all stay so positive like that, y'all's children, I know me looking back, losing my father, I've got just some voicemails and little snippets, some tapes from when I played football or whatever that I could hear his voice. And I can only imagine, not to get morose or anything, but down in the future, down the line, them being able to get online and watch you and your two best buddies, and hear your voice and see you, and being positive and not on there belittling or getting into the nonsense, that's going to be a huge thing for them in the future. Like you said, legacy and preserving, just fantastic stuff, man. Oh, did we lose Trent? Uh-oh. Well, we'll see if he comes back up. We All right. Well, we are at the end of the show, and we've got some big shows lined up. So y'all keep an eye out, and I will stay in touch with y'all, and we'll close this out. And if y'all have got any questions, send them to me, and I will get them to Trent. So thank y'all very much, and y'all have a wonderful day. God bless.